In the neon glow of the futuristic city of New Avalon, there lived an unfortunate knave known as Cunning Druga. His name was a misnomer if there ever was one, for cunning he was not. Despite his best efforts to live up to his moniker, Druga's schemes often ended in spectacular failure. His latest escapade involved a plan to sell moon rocks that turned out to be mere pebbles from the synthetic beaches of the city's lower district. The tale begins on a crisp evening, with Druga donning his finest holographic cloak, ready to swindle the elite with his lunar loot. As fate would have it, his first customer was none other than the Duchess of Cybershire, a woman known for her exquisite taste and not one to be easily fooled. With a sly grin and a twinkle in his digital eye, Druga presented his wares with the flair of a seasoned charlatan. "Behold, the remnants of the great lunar explosions of yore," he proclaimed, voice echoing with artificial reverb. The Duchess, intrigued, examined the stones with her cybernetic monocle, only to burst into laughter. "My dear Druga," she chuckled, "these are but common stones, and your ruse is as transparent as the Emperor's new clothes." Mortified, Druga tried to maintain his composure, insisting that the rocks were indeed from the moon's darkest craters, but the Duchess was not to be trifled with. With a flick of her wrist, she summoned her robotic guards, and poor Druga found himself fleeing through the neon-lit alleys, his cloak flickering out of existence. As he ran, Druga's misfortune only grew. He stumbled into a gathering of android poets, disrupting their recital and earning the ire of the mechanical muses. They chased him with verses sharp as lasers, their poetic justice as swift as it was lyrical. Druga, in his panic, ducked into a teleportation booth, hoping to escape his metallic pursuers. But luck was not on his side, for the booth was a prototype, and instead of transporting him to safety, it multiplied him by 10. Now 10 Drugas roamed the streets of New Avalon, each more bumbling than the last. They caused chaos at every turn, inadvertently helping old ladies cross the street, rescuing cats stuck in quantum trees, and donating their ill-gotten gains to charity. The city, once indifferent to the knave's existence, now celebrated the cunning Drugas as accidental heroes. In the end, Druga's reputation was salvaged, not by his cunning, but by his sheer ineptitude. The city erected a statue in honor of the cunning Drugas, forever immortalizing the knave who tried to sell pebbles as moon rocks and instead stumbled into infamy. And so, the legend of Cunning Druga lived on, a classic tale of misadventure and unintended virtue in the scintillating sprawl of New Avalon. In the sprawling metropolis of New Avalon, where the future was a relic of the past and the present a canvas for the eccentric, there lived an inventor named Phineas Q. Hackle. His mind was a whirlwind of ideas, each more bizarre and brilliant than the last. Hackle's abode was a testament to his genius, a labyrinthine workshop nestled in the heart of the city, where automatons served tea and gears turned in harmonious cacophony. Hackle's latest creation was to be his magnum opus, a device he claimed could harmonize the dissonance of the cosmos. The harmonizer, as he fondly called it, was a contraption of tubes and wires, crystals and coils, all arranged in an intricate dance of scientific artistry. It hummed with a life of its own, pulsating with the potential to change the world. Or so Hackle believed. The inventor's reputation was as eccentric as his inventions. Some called him a madman, others a prophet of technology. Yet all were drawn to the unveiling of the harmonizer, a spectacle that promised to be the highlight of the New Avalon Inventors' Fair. The city buzzed with anticipation, its citizens curious to witness the latest marvel from the mind of Hackle. On the eve of the fair, a storm brewed in the skies above New Avalon, lightning crackling like the synapses of a giant brain. Hackle, undeterred, adjusted his goggles and initiated the harmonizer. A symphony of light and sound erupted from the device, casting prismatic shadows across the awestruck faces of the onlookers. The air vibrated with energy, and for a moment it seemed as though Hackle had indeed harnessed the music of the spheres. But as quickly as it began, the performance turned to pandemonium. The harmonizer, overcharged by the storm's electric fervor, began to oscillate wildly. Hackle frantically twisted knobs and pulled levers, but the machine had taken on a life of its own. It whirled and screeched, a maelstrom of scientific ambition gone awry. The crowd fled in a mix of fear and fascination as Hackle wrestled with his creation. Then, with a flash of brilliance rivaling the lightning above, the inventor realized the true purpose of his invention. It was not to harmonize the cosmos, but to harmonize humanity. With a deft maneuver, he redirected the harmonizer's energy into the city's grid, its chaotic melody transforming into a harmonious frequency that soothed the souls of New Avalon's inhabitants. The storm abated, leaving behind a sense of unity and peace that permeated the city. Hackle emerged from his workshop, his hair singed, his coat tattered, but his eyes alight with triumph. The harmonizer had been a success, not in the way he had intended, but in a way that mattered more. It had brought the city together, if only for a fleeting moment. Phineas Q. Hackle became a legend, his eccentricity now seen as a facet of his genius. The tale of the harmonizer spread through New Avalon, a story of chaos turned to harmony, of an inventor whose wild ideas reflected the very spirit of the city. And in the heart of New Avalon, where the future and the past collided in a beautiful disarray, the legacy of the eccentric inventor lived on, a reminder that in the hands of a dreamer, even the most outlandish idea could become a symphony. In a quaint village, nestled between rolling hills and whispering woods, there lived an unfortunate knave known as Khunning. His name was a paradox, for although he aimed to be sly, his schemes often backfired in the most comical ways. One sunny morning, Druga decided he would no longer be the laughingstock of the village. He concocted a plan to steal a golden egg from the fearsome hen that belonged to the village's most formidable widow, Widow Trencher. Druga, in his misguided wisdom, believed that a disguise would be essential. So he dressed himself as a bush, thinking he would blend in with the foliage. However, as he tiptoed through the village, dogs barked at the roaming shrubbery, and children pointed, giggling at the sight. Unperturbed, Druga reached Widow Trencher's farm and spotted the hen, perched regally atop her golden prize. As he inched closer, the hen eyed him suspiciously. Druga, holding his breath, reached out a trembling hand, but just as his fingers brushed the egg, the hen unleashed an ungodly squawk. Widow Trencher burst out of her house, brandishing a broom like a knight with a lance. Druga, in a panic, turned to flee, but found himself entangled in his bushy costume. The widow, upon seeing the knave's predicament, couldn't help but burst into laughter. She offered him a deal, work for her for a week, and she would gift him a real golden egg. Druga, realizing the error of his ways, agreed. That week, he worked harder than he ever had, and to his surprise found that honest work was more rewarding than any of his failed schemes. From that day on, Khunning was known as Diligent Druga, and he never tried to steal again. Instead, he became known for his hearty laughter and the golden eggs he would occasionally gift to the village children. A reminder of the time when he was outwitted by a hen and a widow with a broom. And so, the unfortunate knave's tale became one of the most beloved funny stories in the village, told and retold for generations to come. Once upon a time, in a bustling market town, there was a baker named Bartholomew, known far and wide for his extraordinary bread. But Bartholomew had a secret. He was terribly afraid of yeast, the very ingredient that made his bread so splendid. He would dance around the yeast jar, chanting silly rhymes to keep the fermenting fiends at bay. One day, a mischievous wind blew through the bakery, knocking the yeast jar off the shelf. The lid popped open, and the yeast came to life, growing and bubbling over the counter. Bartholomew watched in horror as the yeast beast grew larger, consuming sugar and flour and belching out carbon dioxide with glee. The baker, determined not to let his fear get the best of him, grabbed his rolling pin and charged at the beast. But with each whack, the yeast beast only grew until it burst out of the bakery, rolling down the streets, absorbing everything in its path. The townsfolk were astonished as the doughy behemoth rolled by, picking up carts, chickens, and even the mayor's prized toupee. Bartholomew, seeing the chaos he had caused, had an epiphany. He climbed atop the yeast beast and spoke to it kindly, apologizing for his fear and misunderstanding. To everyone's surprise, the yeast beast stopped its rampage, quivering with emotion. Bartholomew promised to respect the yeast from that day forward, and as if in agreement, the yeast beast gently deflated, setting free the carts, chickens, and the rather embarrassed mayor. The town erupted in laughter, and Bartholomew became a legend, not just for his bread, but for his humorous and humbling encounter with the yeast beast. From then on, Bartholomew treated yeast with the utmost care, and his bakery flourished more than ever. The townsfolk would often chuckle as they passed by, remembering the day when fear and flour had conspired to create the most unforgettable spectacle they had ever seen. And as for Bartholomew, he learned that sometimes the things we fear the most can turn out to be the source of great joy and laughter. In the neon-drenched corridors of the starship, there roamed an escort with a reputation as vast as the Andromeda galaxy. Khunning, they called him, not for his slyness in the traditional sense, but for his uncanny ability to find himself in the most bizarre predicaments. Drugger, a man whose hair was as silver as the hull of his ship and whose eyes sparkled with the mischief of 1,000 comets, was known across the cosmos for his charm and wit, which unfortunately often landed him in trouble. One fateful day, Drugger was tasked with escorting a high-profile diplomat from the planet of Vexillar, a being who resembled a cross between a peacock and a sentient cloud of perfume. The diplomat, named Frivolous Plume, was as flamboyant as they come and had a penchant for the dramatic. Drugger, with his usual flair, promised a journey filled with luxury and devoid of any mishaps. Little did he know, the universe had other plans. As they set off, Drugger's ship, decided it had had enough of his shenanigans and began to malfunction in the most peculiar ways. The gravity controls inverted, leaving Drugger and his illustrious guest clinging to the ceiling, their hair and feathers defying the laws of physics. The food synthesizer developed a mind of its own, churning out nothing but mashed potatoes shaped like miniature planets, much to the dismay of the carb-conscious diplomat. But it was the ship's AI, a sassy entity with the voice of a forgotten film noir actress, that truly tested Drugger's patience. It took every command as a suggestion and responded with snarky retorts that left even the unflappable escort at a loss for words. "Navigate to Vexillar," Drugger would command, only to receive a cheeky, "Why don't you navigate us to a mechanic instead?" in return. The journey, which should have been a routine trip, turned into a series of unfortunate events that would make even the most seasoned space travelers head spin. From asteroid fields that appeared out of nowhere to a band of space pirates who turned out to be die-hard fans of Frivolous Plume, each moment was a test of Drugger's resolve. Yet, through it all, Drugger maintained his composure, with the grace of a ballet dancer in zero gravity. He wove tales of his past escapades to keep the diplomat entertained, each story more outlandish than the last. He juggled mashed potato planets with the skill of a circus performer, and he even managed to charm the ship's AI into a semblance of cooperation. In the end, as they arrived safely, albeit upside down, at Vexillar, Frivolous Plume declared it the most exhilarating journey of his life and vowed to commission Drugger for all future travels. Drugger, with a wry smile and a twinkle in his eye, simply tipped his hat and prepared for the next adventure, knowing full well that in the vast expanse of space, the name Khunning Drugger would forever echo with the laughter of the stars. Upon their tumultuous arrival at Vexillar, Khunning Drugger and the flamboyant Frivolous Plume found themselves the unwitting stars of a planetary parade. The Vexillarians, a species that celebrated arrivals as though they were grand finales, had prepared a welcome that would have made the rings of Saturn look understated. As the ship's hatch opened, a cascade of bioluminescent confetti swirled around them, and 1,000 Vexillarian voices sang in a harmony that resonated through the very core of the planet. Drugger, ever the showman despite his recent trials, took the diplomat's arm and descended into the spectacle with a flourish. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, their eyes wide with anticipation. The escort's reputation had preceded him, and the Vexillarians were eager to witness the charisma of the man who had turned a simple escort mission into an odyssey of cosmic proportions. The festivities led them through the streets of Vexillar's capital, a city where the architecture was as fluid as the ocean and the buildings pulsed with a life of their own. Holographic banners displaying Druga's many and often exaggerated feats adorned the skyline, while drones danced overhead, projecting images of his past adventures across the clouds. As they reached the Grand Plaza, the heart of the celebration, Druga and Plume were ushered onto a stage that floated above a sea of cheering entities. Here, the diplomat was to give a speech that would solidify the alliance between Vexilar and the neighboring star systems. But just as Plume took to the podium, the universe, with its peculiar sense of humor, decided to throw one more curveball their way. A sudden solar flare disrupted the planet's technology, plunging the plaza into darkness and silence. But Druga, with a mischievous glint in his eye, saw an opportunity. He leapt onto the podium, his voice carrying across the plaza without the need for amplification. "Fear not, dear Vexilarians," he proclaimed, "for what is a little darkness to beings who shine from within?" With those words, the Vexilarians ignited their inner glow, bathing the plaza in a soft, radiant light. Druga continued, improvising a speech that wove together the threads of their journey with the history of Vexilar, creating a tapestry of unity and adventure that left the crowd spellbound. As the natural light of the stars returned, the celebration resumed with renewed vigor. Druga and Plume danced with the Vexilarians until the moons rose high in the sky, their laughter echoing into the night. And when the dawn came, with the first light of Vexilar's twin suns, it was clear that the bond between the escort and the diplomat had been forged in the fires of adversity and sealed with the joy of the unexpected. The tale of cunning Druga's voyage to Vexilar became the stuff of legend, a story told and retold across the galaxy. It was a reminder that even the most unfortunate events could lead to moments of connection and celebration, and that in the vast expanse of space there was always room for a little more light. And so, with a wink and a nod, Druga set his sights on the horizon, ready for whatever the cosmos had in store for him next. For in the life of an escort known as Cunning Druga, the adventure was never over. It was simply waiting to be continued. Ah, the tales of Cunning Druga's escapades are as numerous as the stars in the sky. Let me regale you with the story of the time Druga was hired to escort a notorious band of space minstrels known as the Cosmic Chords. Their music, said to be the auditory equivalent of a supernova, had the power to stir the soul of even the most stoic android. The venue was the infamous asteroid Alcove, a concert hall carved into a wandering asteroid that orbited the black hole at the center of the Milky Way. The journey there was fraught with peril, for the path was littered with cosmic debris, and the gravitational pull of the black hole was a siren's call to any unwary traveler. Druga, piloting his trusty vessel, navigated with the finesse of a seasoned spacefarer. However, as fate would have it, the minstrels were not only masters of melody, but also of mischief. Mid-voyage, they decided to enhance the ship's engine with their own experimental technology, which they assured Druga was the key to harmonic propulsion. The result was a cacophony of engine sputters, musical notes, and colourful exhaust plumes that sent the careening through space like a drunken comet. Druga, clinging to the controls, managed to steer the ship into the asteroid Alcove with mere moments to spare before the concert's commencement. But the misadventures did not cease upon their arrival. The Cosmic Chords, in their infinite wisdom, had forgotten their instruments on a previous planet. Druga, ever resourceful, fashioned makeshift instruments from spare ship parts and asteroid rock. The result was a symphony of interstellar sounds that captivated the audience, a collection of aliens from across the galaxy who swayed and thrummed to the improvised beats. The concert was a resounding success, and the minstrels, in their gratitude, composed an ode to Druga, which became an instant hit across the spaceways. The song told of his bravery, his ingenuity, and his unflappable demeanor in the face of chaos. It was said that the melody could soothe even the most turbulent quantum storm. As the final notes of the concert faded into the void and the audience dispersed into the cosmos, Druga took a moment to gaze into the abyss of the black hole. He pondered the strange twists of fate that had led him to this moment. the unlikely hero of a spacefaring saga. With a smirk and a shrug, he set the coordinates for the next adventure, knowing that wherever they took him, there would be stories to tell, songs to sing, and undoubtedly a new chapter in the legendary misadventures of Khunning. For in the vast tapestry of the universe, his name was woven with the threads of the extraordinary, a testament to the enduring spirit of adventure that defined his every move. Ra. In the sprawling neon-lit corridors of Earth's Epoch 11, Khunning was a name that echoed with a mix of snickers and awe. Druga, once a notorious escort in the underbelly of the Intergalactic Society, found himself in a peculiar twist of fate when the holosensory networks became the new rage. With a name that was an unfortunate pun on his sly demeanor and less than legal pastimes, Druga decided to reinvent himself as a competitive physical stimulator in the virtual realms. His transition was not without its hiccups. The first time he logged into the network, his avatar, a shimmering, over-muscled version of his already impressive physique, accidentally morphed into a dancing holographic cactus. The viewers were in hysterics and the clip went viral overnight. But Druga, ever the opportunist, spun this mishap into a marketing goldmine, branding himself as the most prickly competitor in the sensory stimulation industry. Battles of the senses were the new sport, and Druga's flair for the dramatic made him a star. He'd stride into the virtual arena with the confidence of a gladiator, only to have his equipment malfunction in the most comical ways. Once, his sensory suit short-circuited, sending him into an uncontrollable tickling frenzy, leaving the audience in stitches as he tried to maintain his composure. Despite these setbacks, or perhaps because of them, Druga's fame skyrocketed. He became the underdog hero, the stimulator who could turn any blunder into a spectacle of laughter and light-heartedness. His shows were a blend of sci-fi wizardry and slapstick comedy, a rare combination that drew crowds from all corners of the network. As Epoch 11 rolled on, Khunning legend grew. He was no longer just an escort-turned-stimulator. He was a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even in the most advanced of societies, there's always room for a good laugh. And though he never won a single competition, in the hearts of the people he was the undisputed champion of joy in a world that was all too serious. In the end, it wasn't his cunning that made him a star. It was his ability to embrace the absurdity of life and turn it into something truly unforgettable. In the neon-drenched corridors of Earth's Epoch 11, where the virtual and the visceral danced in a tangle of tech and flesh, there existed an infamous figure known as Khunning. His title, a Skyfi escort, belied the comedic calamity of his daily existence. Druga, with a name that suggested slyness and subterfuge, was ironically transparent as the glass domes of Earth's pleasure district. In the pulsating virtual arenas of Earth's Epoch 11, Khunning, the once notorious Skyfi escort, found his new calling as a competitive physical stimulator. The holosensory network buzzed with anticipation as Druga, clad in his shimmering suit of haptic fibers, dived into the glistening pools of stimulation. These were no ordinary races. They were a spectacle of sensation and skill, where the stimulation acted as both obstacle and enhancer, its viscous embrace challenging the competitors to adapt. In the sprawling neon-lit corridors of Earth's Epoch 11, where the virtual and the real danced in a tango of pixels and flesh, there existed an unfortunate soul by the name of Khunning. Druga, once a lowly escort in the physical realm, found his calling in the most unexpected of places, the International Virtual Holosensory Network. It was a realm where senses were king, and the physical was merely an echo of the digital euphoria that reigned supreme. Druga, with his peculiar name and even more peculiar luck, stumbled upon this career transition during a particularly disastrous date where his client, a high-profile neurohacker, accidentally linked him into the network. To his astonishment, Druga discovered he had a knack for the virtual stimulation game. His clumsy charm and accidental wit became the talk of the network as users logged in by the millions to experience the Khunning effect. As his popularity soared, so did the competition. In the neon-drenched corridors of Earth's Epoch 11, Khunning was a name that echoed with a mix of snickers and awe. Once a notorious escort, Druga's luck had spun faster than a black hole when the Intramational Virtual Holosensory Network, IVHN, launched. With a flair for the dramatic and a knack for physical comedy, Druga reinvented himself as the most sought-after physical stimulator on the network. His sessions were a blend of acrobatic feats and slapstick humor that left his clients in stitches, both figuratively and due to the occasional virtual mishap literally. From dodging laser-tagged love arrows to juggling anti-gravity heart-shaped grenades, Druga's antics became the highlight of the holosensory experience. His fame skyrocketed in the sprawling neon-lit corridors of Earth's Epoch 11, where the virtual and the visceral blend with a seamless grace. There existed an unfortunate soul by the name of Khunning Druga. Druga, once a lowly escort in the underbelly of Earth's pleasure districts, found himself inadvertently catapulted into the limelight of the International Virtual Holosensory Network. It was a twist of fate, a glitch in the system that registered him not as a mere escort, but as a physical stimulator, a title revered by the digital denizens of the era. Druga's rise to fame was as rapid as it was accidental. His first session on the network, meant to be a discreet encounter, was broadcast across the holosensory channels due to a coding mishap. Viewers from every corner of the network tuned in, expecting the usual fare. But what they got was Druga fumbling with the controls, his avatar glitching in ways that sent unexpected shivers down their digital spines. It was hilarious, it was novel, and it was, against all odds, stimulating. The viewers, hungry for entertainment that broke the monotonous perfection of the network's offerings, clamored for more. Druga, bewildered but adaptable, embraced his new role with a gusto that was as much about survival as it was about showmanship. He became a dead-set meme here. New Avalon, a city of towering chrome and flickering neon where the skyline was a testament to human ambition and ingenuity. The buildings reached for the heavens, their surfaces reflecting the myriad colors of the neon lights that adorned them. It was a place where dreams kissed the sky and schemes festered in the shadows. In the dark alleys and hidden corners, deals were made and secrets were traded. The city was alive with the hum of possibility and the whisper of danger. New Avalon was a city that worshipped at the altar of technology. Every street, every building, every person was connected by an invisible web of data and digital communication. The latest gadgets and innovations were not just tools, but a way of life. Here, fortunes were made and lost on the turn of a binary code. The stock market was a digital battlefield where algorithms clashed and fortunes were won or lost in the blink of an eye. It was a place where the line between success and failure was razor thin. Amidst the digital din and the ceaseless hustle, there was one man who stood out. Khunning Druga, a rogue with a heart full of mischief and pockets full of nothing, sought to carve his own legend in this city of dreams and schemes. Druga wasn't born cunning. He'd earned the moniker through a lifetime of near misses and almost successes. His schemes were audacious, his plans elaborate, and his execution, sadly, always flawed. But each failure was a lesson, each setback a stepping stone. Despite the chaos and the frustration, Druga never lost hope. His optimistic spirit, his unshakable belief that the next big score was just around the corner, kept him going. He was a dreamer in a city that thrived on dreams. Yet his optimistic spirit, his unshakable belief that the next big score was just around the corner, kept him going. He believed that every failure brought him one step closer to success. His resilience was his greatest strength. Tonight, Druga believed, was his night. The city was alive with anticipation, and so was he. He had a plan so simple, so brilliant, that even he couldn't believe no one had thought of it before. He had a plan so simple, so brilliant, that even he couldn't believe no one had thought of it before. It was a scheme that could change his fortunes forever, a plan that could make him a legend in New Avalon. He was going to sell the moon, or rather a small piece of it. In a city where technology could make the impossible possible, Druga had found a way to claim ownership of a piece of the lunar surface, or rather a small piece of it. He had acquired a fragment of moon rock, a rare and valuable artifact. With the right buyer, it could be worth a fortune. And in New Avalon, there was always someone willing to pay for a piece of the extraordinary. The market was bustling. filled with traders and buyers looking for the next big thing. Drugger knew that if he played his cards right, he could turn this small piece of the moon into a ticket to his dreams. The city was a place of endless possibilities, and tonight, those possibilities seemed within reach. With determination in his eyes and a plan in his mind, Drugger set out into the night. The city of New Avalon was his playground, and he was ready to make his move. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Drugger felt like he was in control of his destiny. As the first light of dawn began to break over the city, Drugger knew that this was just the beginning. In a city of dreams and schemes, he was ready to write his own story, one daring plan at a time. The plan hinged on a single shimmering object, a rock carefully crafted, painstakingly painted, and subtly illuminated from within. This wasn't just any rock. It was a masterpiece of deception, designed to captivate and deceive even the most discerning eyes. The glow it emitted was not natural, but a result of advanced technology, a blend of art and science that made it appear otherworldly. It was, to the untrained eye, a genuine piece of the lunar surface. The texture, the color, the tiny craters and imperfections, all meticulously replicated to perfection. It was a marvel of craftsmanship, indistinguishable from the real thing, unless subjected to the most rigorous scientific analysis. Drugger had procured it from a street vendor on the lower levels, a grizzled old man who specialized in rare artifacts and once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. This vendor, with his weathered face and eyes that seemed to have seen the entire galaxy, was known for his ability to find the most obscure and valuable items. Drugger had spent weeks earning the man's trust, convincing him that he was a genuine collector of rare space artifacts. His mark? None other than the elite of New Avalon, gathered at the annual Galactic Gala, a celebration of wealth, status, and questionable taste. The gala was the pinnacle of high society events where the rich and powerful flaunted their wealth and influence. It was a place where deals were made, alliances were formed, and fortunes were won and lost. Drugger knew that this was the perfect setting for his grand deception. Drugger, with his carefully constructed persona as a down-on-his-luck space prospector, planned to auction off his lunar treasure to the highest bidder. His appearance was meticulously planned. The worn-out spacesuit, the unkempt hair, the weary expression. He looked every bit the part of a man who had spent years in the harshest environments of space, searching for valuable minerals and artifacts. He'd practiced his backstory, peppered it with technical jargon, even added a limp to sell the image of a weary space traveler. His story was filled with tales of danger and adventure, of near-death experiences and miraculous discoveries. He spoke of the harsh conditions on the moon, the constant threat of radiation, and the loneliness of space travel. Every detail was designed to make him seem authentic and to elicit sympathy and admiration from his audience. He'd rehearsed his pitch, a blend of awe and scientific mumbo-jumbo, designed to ensnare the gullible and part them from their digital credits. He spoke with passion and conviction, describing the rock's supposed origins and the incredible journey it had taken to reach the gala. He used scientific terms and references to make his story sound credible, knowing that most of his audience would be too dazzled by the spectacle to question the details. The gala, held in a sky-piercing spire that seemed to mock the stars themselves, was awash in a sea of shimmering gowns and tailored suits. The venue was a marvel of modern architecture, with its glass walls offering breathtaking views of the city below and the stars above. The guests, dressed in the finest attire, moved through the space with an air of confidence and entitlement, their conversations filled with talk of business, politics, and the latest trends. Drugger, looking comically out of place in his worn-out flight suit, navigated the crowd with the practiced ease of a con man in his element. He moved from group to group, introducing himself and sharing snippets of his story, always careful to gauge his audience's reactions and adjust his approach accordingly. He knew that the key to a successful con was to make his marks feel special, to make them believe that they were the only ones who could truly appreciate the value of his treasure. His eyes, sharp and alert, scanned the room, searching for his prey. He was looking for the right person, someone wealthy, gullible, and eager to impress. He knew that in a room full of egos, it wouldn't be long before he found his mark. And when he did, he would be ready to deliver the performance of a lifetime. And then he saw her, the Duchess of Cybershire. A woman known for her extravagant tastes and even more extravagant wealth. Her presence was magnetic, drawing the eyes of everyone in the room. She was a vision of opulence, draped in the finest silks and adorned with jewels that sparkled like the stars themselves. She was surrounded by a gaggle of admirers, her laughter tinkling like falling stardust. Her every gesture was graceful. Every word she spoke seemed to enchant those around her. The Duchess was not just a woman of wealth, but a woman of influence and power. She was the perfect mark. In a world where appearances were everything, she stood at the pinnacle. Her trust was a valuable commodity, one that Druga intended to exploit to its fullest. He approached her with a practiced air of humility, his limp more pronounced, his voice a raspy whisper. Every step he took was calculated, every movement designed to evoke sympathy and curiosity. "Your Grace," he croaked, "might I interest you in a piece of the heavens?" His words were carefully chosen, each one dripping with the promise of mystery and wonder. The Duchess, her eyes sparkling with curiosity, turned towards him. She was a woman who had seen and experienced much, yet the allure of the unknown still held a powerful sway over her. "And what," she purred, "might this celestial trinket be?" Her voice was smooth and inviting, a siren's call that Druga had been waiting for. Druga, with a flourish, unveiled his masterpiece. The moment was theatrical, designed to captivate and mesmerize. The fake moon rock, bathed in the soft glow of the ballroom lights, seemed to pulsate with an otherworldly energy. It was a masterful forgery, crafted to perfection to deceive even the most discerning eye. The Duchess, along with her entourage, gasped. The reaction was exactly what Druga had hoped for. The awe and wonder in their eyes were the first steps towards his ultimate goal. This, Druga knew, was his moment. He had spent years perfecting his craft, honing his skills to become the ultimate deceiver. Now all his efforts were about to pay off. He launched into his well-rehearsed speech, weaving a tale of daring space exploration. His words painted vivid pictures of distant galaxies and uncharted territories. He spoke of close encounters with cosmic phenomena, of navigating through asteroid fields and surviving the perils of deep space. Each detail was meticulously crafted to enhance the illusion. And of this rock, this singular piece of lunar landscape that he'd risked life and limb to bring back to Earth. He described the treacherous journey, the near-death experiences, and the ultimate triumph of securing such a rare artifact. He spoke of its rarity, its scientific value, its sheer beauty. He highlighted the unique characteristics that made it unlike anything else on Earth, emphasizing its worth and significance. He spoke, in short, of its price. But it wasn't just monetary value he was selling, it was the story, the adventure, the piece of the cosmos that could belong to her. The Duchess, captivated by the tale and the object before her, was on the verge of making a decision that would change everything.